Hey, Home Church. My name's Calvin Bertrand. I'm the student pastor here at Home Church, and I'm here with Rachel Stinger, who's the director of children's ministry here at Home Church. And we just have a couple announcements with what's going on around the church. We want to continue to remind you guys that we're for Charleston. For too long, the church has been known for what it's against. We want to be known for what we're for. So we just want to remind you to continue loving this community, and we're going to do the best we can to represent Jesus.
That's awesome. And I just wanted to remind you guys today, your kids can come out and do a kids drive-through here at the front awning. We just miss them. We want them to know that we care about them. So come and get free snow cones, free goodie bags, free family resource. Dunk the Home Church staff in the dunk tank. It's going to be awesome. We're excited. It'll be from 1:30 to 3 today. Drive-through, contactless event. We have sanitation measures in place. We want to see you and your family today. We hope you can join us. Enjoy church. Bye-bye.
Well, hey, we haven't been around for a minute. At least here, you haven't been. I don't know if you've been watching online or if you've been listening, but we're doing this series we're calling Summer Reading. Let me get to where I need to be before I move forward. We're doing this series called Summer Reading, and it's really just this idea of, it's two letters that we're going to look at. And it's this letter that Paul wrote to the Thessalonians, or the people of Thessalonica. And here's the thing on Summer Reading is it's just two letters that Paul wrote when he was detached, disconnected from new followers, a new church. These people were new to the faith, and all of a sudden they are separated. And I just think it'd be pretty key for us to read as we've been separated. I know anytime there's a disconnect, that it can be difficult. And doing faith like disconnected, that can be really difficult. So I figured this would be really key for us to read through. And last week, we opened up, it was like the first chapter that we looked at. So we're going to look at 1 Thessalonians 1, and that's 5 chapters. And then we'll look at 2 Thessalonians, which is 3 more chapters. And so we'll look at this through June and July. But last week, the whole idea of like chapter 1 of Thessalonians, if you didn't get a chance to listen or you didn't get a chance to read the chapter, was Paul just saying to the Thessalonians, like, hey, you got to demonstrate a faith worth following. You just have to have a faith worth following. And for me, for us, like in the middle of like what can feel like a fire, in the middle of what can feel hard and difficult, that I want to demonstrate a faith that's worth following for my kids, for the next generation. And today we're going to talk about this. It's basically like part 2 to last week, and it's this idea that we want to practice our faith under pressure. That I want to practice my faith under pressure. And like if you could like subtitle, it would be like, hey, don't forget your faith. Don't forget your faith. This whole idea of we want to practice our faith under pressure. And I don't know like where you're at, but anytime I try to perform something under pressure, it's just difficult. It's harder. Like I'm into golf, and like a 3-foot putt, like playing miniature golf with my kids, I'm lights out. Like I'm Tiger Woods at miniature golf. Like the 3-foot putt, I don't sweat that. I don't feel pressure. I'm comfortable with that. But you move me from like a miniature golf course to like a real golf course. And maybe some of you have been there before, but it's like all of a sudden, like I am the furthest thing from Tiger Woods, and I can't make 3-foot putts to save my life. And Caleb, he will maybe know this, but we used to do these big stuff. When we'd go to big stuff, we would play a miniature golf tournaments. Like we would set up tournaments down there, and even like for Bert, Bert, maybe you remember, like even a miniature golf tournament, it's like kind of hard to perform under pressure. But anytime you're under pressure, it's difficult to perform. And then like For our own faith, though, not that it's a performance, but when we're trying to practice our faith out, it can be difficult. It's like this last Wednesday night, Amber, she started back with her small group, and so we're not meeting at our house, and we decided we're going to meet outdoors, and she decided she's going to meet outdoors. So Wednesday night she had small group, and she went out to Lake Charleston. And she said, like, about midway through, everything was going great, and about midway through, like, all these raccoons came out. And I don't know if you've been around the lake, but maybe you're familiar with, like, the raccoons are, like, a little overly friendly right now. And she sent me videos. Her group started at 7. By, like, 7:30, she's sending me these videos. And they're, like, all standing up on the tables, and these baby raccoons are all over the place. And Amber said this was really a distraction. It was really like about midway through the group got kind of difficult to really focus. And I'm kind of laughing at her, like, wow, you guys are soft. And so Thursday night, I went to the same place, and the raccoons came out again. And they're all over the place, and like, except this time I'm meeting with guys, and all the guys were like completely comfortable, which was even more of a disappointment to me because I was like really struggling to like practice my faith in that moment. Like, we want to do small group together, but I'm so focused on like these raccoons. At one point in my group, this is a true story, that I was the only guy standing up on the table, and the rest of my guys were like, wow. But this is true. But it's really hard to like practice your faith. And like, the raccoons are one thing, but when you lose your job, when you're a part of a minority, when you're financially impacted, when you are dealing with anxiety, when it seems like this season is like whatever issue is in your life, it just gets turned up a little bit, or maybe there's new things that it's just really hard to practice your faith. It's really hard. It's really easy to just forget your faith, like in this fire that we're in. And here's the thing is we're going to get to is Paul, he knew like it's going to be really hard to continue to practice this faith when you're being persecuted. And so I'm going to read 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, I'm going to read a few verses, then we're going to talk about it. I'm reading this out of the New Living Translation. And again, just a little quick background. Paul had been to Thessalonica, and he told them the good news, and they got off to a great start, and they're following Jesus, and then all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, Paul has to bail. And so he's separated from the people that he's trying to like influence. And so he writes them this letter. And he says in verse 1, he says, "You yourselves know, dear brothers and sisters, that our visit to you was not a failure." He says, you know. That's like the second time in 2 verses. He said, you know. You know. It's like a reminder. It's a stabilizer. It's like he's reminding that you know. It's like when Amber gets ready to leave the house and leaves me with the kids. You know. It's like these are reminders. She'll call when she's at the store. How is it going? I'm just checking in. It's like reminders because they're stabilizers. He says, for you know how badly we had been treated at Philippi just before we came to you, and how much we suffered. That he had been beaten, he had been in prison. Now he's in Philippi, which later he's imprisoned. And then now he has escaped Thessalonica. And he says, you know how much we suffered. And then he says, yet our God gave us the courage to declare his good news to you boldly in spite of great opposition. It's kind of like this. It's like, okay, the reality is this is a struggle. The reality is we suffered. The reality is we're stinging a bit. But then the response to the reality, which doesn't make any sense, like my flesh, it doesn't make sense. that we responded boldly and courageous. Like, what if I would be locked up or if I would be beaten, I'm going to go timid. And he says, no, we responded boldly. And he goes on in verse 3 and he says, so you can see we were not preaching with any deceit or impure motives or trickery. And it's this whole idea that he's just saying, hey, you can see like the pressure that we were under, we practiced our faith. And so for you, whatever pressure you're under, it's like now's the time Paul would just say, hey, you know, it's time to practice your faith. It's time to apply it. It's time to put it in play. And wherever you would be, whatever your situation would be, if you're married and your spouse is like, you're getting a lot of your spouse right now. It's like, it's time to practice your faith under pressure. You're in leadership and you feel pressure. I just know for myself that there have been times where it's like wit responds out of pressure. And then it's like, oh, what would he have had me done in this situation? And I have to back up. And Paul's just saying, you've got to practice. We practice our faith under pressure. So whatever your situation may be right now, it's like practice your faith under pressure. And he clearly gives us about 5 or 6 ways that we can do that. Watch this. 1 Thessalonians 2, we're going to read 4 and 6 together. It says, for we speak as messengers approved by God to be entrusted with the good news. Our purpose is to please God, not people. He alone examines the motives of our hearts. Never once did we try to win you with flattery. As you well know, and God is our witness, that we were not pretending to be friends just to get your money. And as for human praise, we have never sought it from anyone or from you or anyone else. And let me just give you a takeaway from that. Don't get distracted. Our goal in this season, even under pressure, we're to please God. It's it can be so much about, this pressure of pleasing people, or we're distracted by situations or pain in our life. And it's whoa, don't get distracted. This is about pleasing God. I have a couple girls at home, and when we'll tell them the good news, recently I told one of my girls, hey, we got good news. We're going to grandma's house. And so what we need you to do is go tell the other 2 kids that are outside, we're going to grandma's house. This is the good news. You're messenger. We want you to be a messenger. You got the good news. Go tell them we're going to grandma's house, and we need them to get in the car. That's the message. And then there's this other little boy in our neighborhood that his name's Jackson. He's a great kid, but I've begun to call him Distraction Jackson. That it's go tell them the good news. We're going to grandma's house. About 10 minutes later, we walk out. It's we have not heard anything about going to grandma's house. We're doing this because you get distracted trying to please people and you focus on other areas. For us, we can get so focused on the problems. We forget, hey, we're to please God here. That we are messengers, that we are ambassadors, that we're carriers of the good news. And for me, it's I don't want to get distracted. I don't want to lose my purpose in this. I don't want to be a person that gets distracted. So Paul's just saying, hey, do not get distracted. Verses 7 and 8, he says this, as apostles of Christ, we certainly had a right to make some demands of you. But instead, we were like children among you. Or we were like a mother feeding and caring for her own children. We loved you so much that we shared with you not only the good news, but our own lives too. And I want to encourage you by just reading what Paul was reminding the Thessalonians of. We've got to be people that practice courageous compassion. I read this week, like anytime there's a pandemic, anytime there's a breakout, there's three really, really common responses. And number one is this. It's a people go into like escape mode or fantasy land. Like they just act like when there's problems that are coming your way or a pandemic breaks out, like common reaction number one is you just go into escape mode or fantasy land. Maybe like some people like went on vacation on spring break, like COVID does not exist, like maybe I don't know if that was you or not, but we're glad you're here, or we hope you're healthy. But that was like common option number one. It's like it doesn't exist. Number two is people look for economic exploitation. So like you start selling your toilet paper on eBay or something like that. But it's like you look for economic exploitation. Number three is courageous compassion. And Paul's in this thing like, hey, we showed up. Like we didn't drop demands on you. We said we're in this together. We want to live this out with you. We want to share the faith. Like we want to like not only just tell you or demand things of you, like compassion means like empathize, to get in your setting. And to not drop demands, but like to demonstrate it. And so maybe like for you, it's like, where is it that there's like somebody that you have these feelings inside you, like I'd like to just take a swing at them. Or I would like to at least throw shade at them. Of like, no, Paul said, we didn't demand anything. We shared our lives with you. And so like, I want to be a person of like courageous compassion, like under pressure. Like I'm going to stop. I'm going to share my life with you. I'm going to sit down with you. I'm going to be gracious with you. Like, where is it? Who is it? Maybe it's somebody that's posted something. Maybe it's the majority that said something about you as a minority. That you demonstrate, show courageous compassion. You think, when your gut says, I would like to take a swing at you. Maybe I should share a meal together. Maybe I should slow down and spend some time. But under pressure, like these are the things that we got to practice, that Paul practiced. He goes on in verse 9 and 10. He says, don't you remember, dear brothers and sisters, how hard we worked among you? Night and day we toiled to earn a living so that we would not be a burden to any of you as we preach God's good news to you. You yourselves are our witnesses, and so is God, that we were devout and honest and faultless toward all of you believers. Can I just encourage you with this idea that let go of your ego. Let go of your ego. Be devout. Be honest. Be faultless. Like we've been entrusted. We've been empowered with the good news. And Paul later goes on to say, we lived like mothers and fathers among you. I thought about it this way for me this week. I'm trying to love my kids the best I can and be their dad. But there was a situation this week in my backyard where Amber bought this pool from Rural King. You all have probably bought pools at this point. But we got this little pool from Rural King. And I was kind of frustrated with I've been working on my grass. You're going to kill the grass. And so the kids are out there getting ready, and it's taking an hour to fill this thing up. And there, every bit of my ego and the power I had to be their dad, to be a person in authority, to be a person in position of I could really use my dad privileges against you right now. Everything in me just wanted to be let Evie have it with the hose. Let Kinsey have it with the hose. Let Mason let Amber have it with the hose. Why are we doing this? But there's like, as I'm reading through this scripture this week, it was like this reminder for me, I got to let this down. I got to love these guys. I should probably just get in the pool with them. Like for us, where is it that you feel like, oh, I'm empowered, or I've been following longer than they have, or I deserve something from this? Like, where is it that you just need to lay it down? Where is it that you need to be more committed, that you need to be more devoted, that you need to be more faultless, that you need to be more loving, that Paul would say, hey, let go of your ego, that we should be devout, that we should be honest, that we should be faultless. And then he goes on, Thessalonians 2:12, he says, we pleaded with you, we encouraged you and urged you to live your lives in a way that God would consider worthy. For he called you to share in his kingdom and glory. And I just want to encourage you, like, to push the faith of the people following you, like, to fuel their fire. Like, where is it? Who is it that you need to, like, fuel the fire of the faith of the people coming from behind you? Where do you need to show up? Who do you need to send a text to? Who do you need to encourage? That I think maybe the best thing we've done as a staff in the last 13 weeks is we've talked from week number 1 of, hey, let's be people that text 5 people a day. Let's just check in. Let's just encourage them. Let's be encouragers. That maybe that's what you need to do, is you need to send a text that wherever it would be, that you just need to show up and encourage someone, if someone that's new to the faith, or someone that has kids and their faith is like under some sort of fire, and wow, we got kids this summer for 6 months. Like, which isn't a bad thing to your kids, but for you, you're like, I'm going to need some help, that you maybe turn back and encourage someone. That I know I've mentioned this before, but my mother-in-law is this great encourager to me of, oh, we listen to you, or how's it going, or you're doing great, or whatever, of just constant encouragement. That Paul pleaded with them, he urged them, that he encouraged them to live lives that are worthy, to keep going. And then just his last idea is over and over and over in chapter 2, Paul says, remember, do you know? Like, it's basically like, don't forget your faith. Don't forget your faith. And whatever pressure we are detached and we're not together, don't forget your faith. And I know for me, I took a ride 2 weeks ago to Effingham by myself, and I drive to Effingham basically just to get a sandwich and turn around and come back, and I feel like alone. I feel isolated. I feel like, am I called to do this? Should we keep going? Should I continue? And what's kind of crazy, and maybe you felt this, is like when you get under this pressure, like there's some reason like you forget like these habits and practices and disciplines that you do on the regular, and it's like we got to get back to that. And it was like, for me, it was like I had to just stop and remember. Like, hey, Whit, you're called to this. It's like that when you're weak, he is strong. That he'll go before you, and that he's constant. Hey, Whit, do you remember? Do you remember that Jesus lives in you? Do you remember that Jesus is inside of you? Do you remember that the Holy Spirit has you? Do you remember that your faith is supposed to be contagious? Do you remember that we're supposed to represent kindness? Do you remember that we're humble? Do you remember that the Lowers is look for lonely people? Do you remember that we should be compassionate? The people who aren't even like us should like us because Jesus lives in us. Do you remember? Yeah, it's full of pressure. Yeah, this isn't what you like. Yeah, would you rather be in a different position? Absolutely. But would you remember that God goes before you, that He has you, that you want to live out a faith that's contagious, that you want the generation, you want the kids in your house to see a faith worth following. Do you remember? It's like for me, it's like, okay, I'll keep playing. I'll keep participating. I'll keep going. I want to have a kind of faith. Mason, Kenzie, Evie, I'm in this for you. I'm in this for you guys. I was you, buddy, just about 25 years ago, hanging out on the pews. Like, we have got to be people that practice our faith under pressure. We got to live this out. I will tell you this, that we got to make every effort to encourage each other. Every effort to encourage. Like, I think for some of us, you walk in tonight and we're wearing face masks. And it's like, we'll do whatever, we'll make every effort to just get together and encourage. Maybe you've been in like these drive-by birthdays or drive-by funerals or drive-by visitations, or you've sat outside a nursing home window and you've made every effort to encourage. Or maybe you've like done Zoom to nausea, or whatever it be, if you've made every effort to just encourage, or you've FaceTimed. I think you all have done that really well. I know for us, we've made every effort to get in your living rooms, to get in your car, to get on your phone, to just stop and create this encouragement for you. That Caleb and Ethan have made every effort to just help us as a church continue to be the church in this season, to encourage and listen to how Paul closes out the chapter, verses 17 to 19. He says, "Dear brothers and sisters, after we were separated from you for a little while, though our hearts never left you, we tried very hard to come back because of our intense longing to see you again. We wanted very much to come to you, and I, Paul, tried again and again, but Satan prevented us. After all, what gives us hope and joy, and what will be our proud reward and crown as we stand before our Lord Jesus when He returns? It is you." And I would just close with this. It's just really good to see you. It's really good to be in the same room. It's really good to encourage one another. It's really good to be reminded that we should be practicing our faith under pressure. So let me just remind you tonight that God is constant, that He's working, that He's working all things out for the good. He's got purpose in whatever problem you're facing right now. Let's be people. Let's be people that deal hope. Let's be people that represent Jesus. Let's be people that continue practicing our faith even under pressure. Let me pray for you.